Hi guys, welcome to Wrestling Fan Open My Night here exclusively on this very channel. So if you know what to do, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you'll be in and updated anytime I do any videos for you guys for your viewing pleasure. Now, I want to actually say to every one of you guys is sorry how bad I look on camera on the last video, let alone this video, because obviously the humidity is rising once again here in the United Kingdom, and quite honestly, I'm pulling my hair out. Quite honestly, I'm literally pulling my hair out because not literally, you know, keep kayfabe alive, guys. But there's very humidity in my room, and I don't like it. But I've got around to seeing Dark Side of the Ring about Jeff Jarrett and TNA. Now, it was 3 episodes long. Don't get me wrong, but they were actually really, really good. To the point where it was an eye opener for me because obviously, if you may or not know, I used to watch TNA religiously. Um, I got into TNA, I would say, I think 2012. I think technically when I really started watching it properly, even though, yes, I saw the world of YouTube when people used to upload the episodes from Spike TV or Bravo as it was here in the United Kingdom. And that was part of a TV deal that I couldn't get access to because it weren't on our package, if I remember rightly. I did back in the day when I used to have the likes of Sky TV back in the day, or NTL, or Diamond Cable. Growing up, I used to watch the likes of ECW on there. Then when obviously that ceased to exist and so on like that, and then obviously all I was main focus on was WWE back in the day. Believe it or not, I did watch WWE. I did praise it back in the day, and then obviously I got the world of the internet on a dongle for basically aiming towards obviously opening the world of the internet into my house for the very first time. You know, we were back then. It was technically a luxury item. Technically, it's still a luxury item, but it's a day-to-day necessary necessity. Can't say that 10 times fast. I'm not even going to try. You try and attempt to do it at home. The Quite honestly, that opened the door for me watching more professional wrestling, and obviously leading to me making videos about professional wrestling in 2010. And then I started getting into, I think it was about 2013 or was it 2010? I can't remember which. When I heard that Hulk Hogan signed with TNA. And that opened my eyes even more to TNA than obviously seeing clips when I've run myself up a stupid phone bill because quite honestly, um, I thought I had unlimited data, but then I went straight over that unlimited data running YouTube back in the day. Yeah, took me a while to pay that off. Put it that way, and just think how much that was back then to today's prices, And I'm fortunate I have in 2026 I have the internet in my room. I could gain access to YouTube through my Virgin Media as well as my smart TV, towards obviously my PC that's basically behind this camera right now. I'm fortunate to have access to that. But when I literally got access to TNA, I thought this be an opening another door to me watching professional wrestling. I felt great because I've missed watching the likes of ECW, WCW growing up, and I thought, okay, I'll give my honest opinions towards it. As you may or may not know, when I used to give my thoughts and opinions towards certain shows, when it came to the likes of TNA, I literally had death threats. I used to speak positive towards WWE, when they were doing great. And then you had the likes of TNA. I always spoke positive of that. And it was very, very hard to keep up with so much going off. I was so, I thought, okay, compared to what you have now, it's even worse than when I was starting doing YouTube. So when I opened my eyes to TNA, I knew full well, even though I was literally following the suit of the likes of Hulk Hogan, even though, yes, like I've mentioned, I've watched clips of TNA in the past, but I used to watch it and I was an advocate to watch when he joined the company, not full realizing he took full creative control until pretty much later on when I gave up watching TNA when it starts to get a bit lackluster. And I feel like when you look at how many people have let go recently, the likes of Tommy Dreamer within the last 2 years, the released Scott D'Amore, they've lost Gail Kim, and so on. The same patterns forming throughout what you actually see on this documentary. They didn't cover that much in depth towards obviously the new generation, obviously of TNA, but because obviously they don't want to hinder towards their product. Although when you look at the way I feel like this documentary is put out, and this is just me being honest, I feel like it's hindered the product even more than when Jeff Jarrett actually had it, and then obviously walked away from the company. He was sick and tired of Dixie Carter. Everyone knew full well Dixie Carter was a bitch backstage, and that's just me being honest on camera. And quite honestly, she lived and breathed her character. She tried to be like the female Vince McMahon, if you wanna see it in comparison. That's what it felt to me by watching this documentary. I don't always watch all the episodes of Dark Side of the Ring because, quite honestly, I don't want to break that barrier. It's bad enough when you do mix reality with professional wrestling. I don't like it sometimes. Q&A sessions, I don't mind, or autograph sessions, meeting your wrestlers, meeting your heroes, or whatever you want to class them as. But when it comes to Dark Side of the Ring, it's sometimes a no-go area, because quite honestly, I don't want to see stuff that I watched and acknowledge what's gone off, even though I know certain things like when they've done the likes of the Chris Benoit episodes, but they went in more in depth. But anyway, when I'm saying about TNA, and I'm feeling, I literally, it's mad to say they've covered it in 3 parts, but it was necessary to cover it in 3 parts to the point where you had the likes of Jim Cornette walk away from the company because working with Vince Russo didn't want to work with Vince Russo. Then you looked at the likes of Jeff Jarrett, he didn't want to come back to the company because he technically was working with Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff back in the day on WCW with the clash of heads going off. I just felt like when you look how much that I've literally, even though I did watch it from when Hulk Hogan actually joined the company, that opened my eyes to the company. I look back at it and think, okay, I didn't sample the likes of Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles. I mean, yeah, well, AJ Styles didn't see the early days of Kurt Angle in his run. It's mad to think when Kurt Angle had more matches in TNA than his WWE career. You look at Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle, that feud back in '06. When I got hold of the episodes through obviously watching them on YouTube, I was watching the old episodes, and this was like when people were putting them up onto YouTube, and I was blown away with it. It was like when I was watching FCW. I wish that was on the WWE network. I wish WWE would release that footage. Those in clear, crisp quality stuff compared to what we obviously see on YouTube that people have uploaded. But anyway, when I looked at the way TNA, and I was thinking, who's actually killing TNA? Who's actually harming the product? Because it looked like Clash of the Egos. Yeah, fair enough. Jeff Jarrett walked away from the company that he started. But it felt like discarded it. Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan, obviously, I knew full well there was tension with him doing it. With the rebrand, Jeff Jarrett weren't happy about that to get rid of the 6-sided ring. It just, the one thing that really makes me laugh when I actually see this compared to obviously the Netflix documentary that Hulk Hogan actually had about him, the 4-parter that we all sat through. Yeah, myself included. I feel like when he says that TNA saved him and all this lot, they're grateful that he reached out to him. And then when you see Dark Side of the Ring, everyone detested him, working for him, working with him and Eric Bischoff, and that just proves how much of an eye opener when you need 2 sides of the story. And the reason why I felt like the way Hulk Hogan glamorized TNA, because obviously the working relationship that the WWE technically has with the licensed TNA, this day and age, but I don't feel like they're helping them whatsoever, because I feel like at the moment sometimes they can have good sales on tickets or bad sales on tickets. End of the day, you look at the bigger spectrum of it all, and you look at the way this documentary is set out to be. I feel like technically it threw the whole genre of TNA under the bus. I was finding it interesting when G-Force Wrestling was starting. I was looking forward to seeing that, but it never materialized with a TV deal, even though you merged sort of both of them towards Amped. I used to love watching those sort of episodes. But it's great to see they actually, yet again, another company that, like Dark Side of the Ring, that Vice, the company that produced that documentary, has highlighted how much well he likes to work with the likes of Tony Khan in AEW. Because it is mastermind and so on to help the young talent and so on. I feel like, yeah, I will say this, that I feel like when I've said in the previous videos here on Wrestling Fan Open Mic Night, I've said this. I can see a lot of inspiration from TNA, the likes of ECW, Mid South Wrestling, etc., etc., etc. From when Tony Khan was growing up as a wrestling fan, even WCW. I'm not going to hide away and say, "Oh no, it's not. No, it's not. It's an alternative brand and all this lot." I feel like when you look at the likes of AEW, I feel like this is what TNA should have actually had more than Clash of Heads. And that's just me being honest. I feel like if you look at the biggest picture of it, TNA could be a dominant force if it was done right. And I feel like at the moment, I feel like TNA is not doing right and doing anything about to improve itself. It's just I'll be honest with you. When you look at the what way they tried to revamp it, yeah, fair enough. You haven't got that go-to star the same way. I feel like when you literally can't build up that go-to star, and that's just me being honest. I'm not being horrible towards the AMC who broadcast it or anything. I just feel like when I look at TNA now, I think, oh, it's just another wrestling show. Hasn't done anything to appeal to me. Yes, they've had great talent come through the ranks of since the likes of Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff has faded away. Bully Ray made a benefit of the doubt of it. He had a great singles run. I felt like WWE should have done better with his singles run. But like I'm saying to you guys at home that is watching this, who's actually hurt TNA over the years? Was it, like I was saying, Dixie Carter, all these names that are involved. But like I was saying about the way I see the influences from what Jeff Jarrett's given to Tony Khan, and Tony Khan's latching onto those ideas. Quite honestly, this is why I've stressed this many and many times that I don't care. I enjoy AEW because I feel like when I'm watching AEW, it's picked off where TNA left off from my fandom. Because quite honestly, I feel like they need their own version of an X division. I've been saying this for a while, or a hardcore division, because the amount of bloodshed has been tears. Because quite honestly, this is just my ideas as a wrestling fan that I've been watching for years upon wrestling. Because at the end of the day, you look at how much wrestling is unavailable today on the internet. It's only Thursday, and literally we've got Maple Leaf MLP debuting on my AEW tonight, which I'm looking forward to clapping my eyes on, and I'll probably give you my thoughts and opinions towards that entity. You look at the way Billy Gunn's involved with it, and obviously, I feel like, in a way, when we look at this working relationship, I feel like with Scott D'Amore, what he did for TNA. Don't get me wrong, I did check an odd episode when Scott D'Amore was involved, and I thought it was actually good stuff. But the problem is they've lost all their go-to names now. You look at what WWE is doing with Jordan Grace now. You feel like, okay, why are you doing this? Why are you not doing it correctly for the poor girl? You've hyped her up. This is the problem where it lies when I come to the likes of WWE, and I'll state this. The problem where it lies, they don't make future stars. They just do as and when, because it's not. They don't treat it as a wrestling company anymore. They just rely on the past names coming in the ranks. Jordan Grace is a prime example of what I'm saying. She was a mega star in the likes of NXT. Yes, I watched a few episodes when she was actually on the brand. She was doing well. She moves to the main roster, and no creative direction for her. Now that I feel like that's hard done by because she's part of TNA's legacy. She was a larger than life character in that company, and she picked up, I would say, with Awesome Kong that when she left off the company, and that's a massive achievement to fill in that void. Now I feel like when you look at the bigger spectrum, there's nothing for her, and that's hard done by for the poor girl. And I feel like they should technically put her back on an NXT. That's what I mean. It's like when you look at the bigger spectrum of it, what is there left for TNA to do? Obviously, I've already talked about it. Obviously, there's rumors and speculations it's up for sale. And when people literally says, "Oh, what happens if Tony Khan buys it and gives it Jeff Jarrett to run?" I don't, I don't feel that Tony Khan wants it because he said it in a press conference. He's not interested in buying the company, which is a good thing. Although it can be a bad thing because he don't want to be the person that what Vince was to buy all his competition or buy the territories and so on like that. He just doesn't want to fall in that suit, even though he acquired and bought the likes of Ring of Honor within the past 5 years. But he's promoting that as a separate company, even though it's on my AEW, which is actually amazing to see. Yes, occasionally the belts do cross over onto the likes of Ring of Honor brand, but you literally are bringing an entity towards the AEW brand. I feel like Ring of Honor is set out. He's setting it out how Ring of Honor used to be, promoting for the next future stars that are coming through, and that's why you see a lot of entity towards these. When I did the likes of Kevin Knight video not that long ago, Alex Reed was talking about how much he's developed as a young talent for the future, taking those risks, and that's what they're doing. It's like a revolving door, and it's a good entity and good necessity to actually see that materialize. Because I look at the Ring of Honor brand, I see that as the likes of NXT. I don't watch Ring of Honor for a long period of time now, but I'm not saying I won't entertain it. I would love to sit down and watch an episode of Ring of Honor, but I've cut down on a lot of professional wrestling. I could sit here 7 days a week talk about professional wrestling. I don't want to be ended up doing that when I was doing it for the likes of Raw, NXT, AEW, TNA, SmackDown, then the pay per views, and so on. I don't want to be end up doing that. Sorry, guys, but it's true. But when I look at like I'm saying, the bigger spectrum, I look at the way TNA and I'm thinking, it's TNA. No disrespect to the people that are running it. I just be honest with you that I'm not going to be one of these stereotypical saying it's a sinking ship because it's still around today. At least one thing that highlighted that in the documentary, that it's still around today. It's good to actually hear that it's still around today. I don't like seeing people being unemployed. Don't get me wrong, but I just see the bigger things coming towards AEW sort of thing, and it just baffles me that when you see Dark Side of the Ring, these 3-part episodes, it's such an eye opener because there was so much going off behind closed doors that we never realized as fans, and this is pretty much started being talked about and spread around when Dirt Sheets started appearing. Um, Earlier on in the years, and then people latched on to see what they're seeing. Dirt Sheets, majority of it is actually true nowadays compared to how it was fabricated back in the day. It just shows you how much of a evolve the Dirt Sheets have actually had on the wrestling industry to find out inside source, and that's me being honest. But when you look at Dark Side of the Ring, how much they're actually showing the truth of certain wrestlers or companies and so on like that, it's a mental way to think into it when you mix that reality that we do not see, but the tension between certain wrestlers, creative direction, and so on. It's just absolutely mental. it's mental how much they actually covered from his alcohol abuse and so on like that. You know, and it's from the horse's mouth himself. And it's weird to think that when he went to AAA, when he was wrestling, when he was completely shit faced, now WWE own it. Don't get me wrong, I do give WWE credit where it's due. They've kept AAA separate compared to merging it all under one umbrella. That's what I do give WWE credit for. But that's just my thoughts and opinions, guys. All I can say is go watch that episode. Please do. But that's just my thoughts and opinions. Tell me your thoughts. But until next time, guys, catch you guys later.